those terminologies, right? We've covered that in a couple of sessions already. The terminology of what is Adi Bhuta, what is Adi Devata, what is Adhyatma, all of that. And then the second topic that Arjuna asked, which is going to be dealt with in a lot of detail, is what is the state of the mind that a person should have at the time of death, so that he goes to a higher state. Right? So that was the question that was asked, and Krishna started answering that from the 5th stanza onwards. And in the 6th stanza, he clearly says, that is a very rhyming stanza. If you take a look at that particular one, it says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tame vaidire. So yam yam, whatever I think at the time, that I leave the body, I manifest myself as that. Very, very clear. There is a little episode, you might have heard, King Bharata, he had he served his kingdom very well, and then he went to the forest, and he got very fond of deer. Right? So there was one baby deer, he took care of it so much, and he was so passionate, he was so attached to the deer. And so even when he left the body, he was thinking about the deer. And it is said that he was born as a deer in his next birth. Right? You would be aware of this. So all sages say this, right? So it's very clear. I mean, it is nothing. And the way that Guruji always talks about it, reflect on what is it that when you go to bed with every night, the same thing manifests the next day morning. So death is nothing but an elongated sleep. That's the way to look at it in very simple terms. Accepting that we come in the same body when we get up in the next morning. In the case of death, we come in a different form of body. That's the only difference. So that was the 6th. Now the question is, what is it that I have to do, right, to get into the right frame of mind at the time of death? There is no magic to it, right? So if I have to come in a certain frame of mind at the time of death, is it possible that I, as a person who is always possessive about wealth, possessive about people, or many other possessions, whatever those attachments might be, suddenly can think of Narayana at the time of death? Not at all possible. The only way it is possible is I have been constantly thinking about that divine force throughout my life. Right? And that's the only way it's possible. Because what creates our thoughts? It's our impressions. And what are impressions? Deeply embedded set of multiple episodes of experiences that we've had throughout the life. That is what shows up, right? If you think even during the day, give a reflection on what sort of thought. It's about something about, yourself, about your health, about the family, about the job. It is always this, right? It keeps rotating. And there's no secret to it. Yeah, of course, we think of God when we do go pray, etc. It's not that thought doesn't come. But, the thing that to come suddenly at the time of death, for this to manifest, is not an easy job. So therefore, the only way for it to happen is I have to think of the God. So that's what gets covered in the 7th stanza. 7th stanza talks about the fact that if you have to remember me, my mind and intellect has to be constantly engaged in. So this obviously brings up the question, right? If I have to be thinking about him, what would people think? I have to drop everything that I have doing right now in my samsaric life, etc. I take vanvas, or I go to sannyas, go to an ashram, and all that I do morning to evening with meditation. Not at all the answer. Right? The answer, the thing is, while during your duties, while keeping your responsibilities as it is, without compromising on them, how can I put my mind and intellect on the divine force? That is the question, right? And this gets talked about in quite a few verses. This is one of them, right? So therefore, this is the one main thing that we have to remember is that, and we might think, okay, fine, I've already crossed 40, I've already come to this age. Now, what is left in me? etc. There's never a question about being late. All of these things. right? It is like losing weight or getting fit, right? You can still get fit after a certain age, after a certain time, correct? So like that same thing with respect to the mind, with respect to that how we, the attitude with what I do things, all of that. So remember me at all times is what he says in this stanza. What is his remembering me in all times? The beauty about our culture, right, our Hinduism culture, Sanatan Dharma is this, right? Our rishis, those from those days, they realize this. If you look at all the rishis, they have said, set of things that you do from the morning till the night. It's just that we have forgotten many of them, right? And we teach this to our Bal-Vihar children, right? We wake up in the morning, look at your hands, look at, and then the shlokas for each and every one of them, Karagre, Vasate, Lakshmi, etc., right? Even if I don't know the shloka, I look at my hands to remind myself of that. Then when I take the bath, I say Gange, Jamine, Jeva, Godavari, Saraswati. Again, you don't have to chant. You just remember that, this water that I'm cleansing myself, I'm going to first cleanse my body, right, before I do other cleansing. And I think of all the sacredness, of the water that is cleansing my body. So again, you're doing small, small connections in this, right? And then before even that, right, you go, many ladies play do rangoli at the, outside the home. There's a purpose beyond the rangoli, right? You're connecting with nature, right? You're making the ants that come and eat it, right? And you're serving nature to some extent. And then there's a beauty about that rangoli. There's also an art in that rangoli. It is not just purely randomly doing something, right? It has got its own significance, right? The rangoli part. Then lighting a lamp in the morning, lighting a lamp in the evening, right? It just creates an energy. All of these things, it's small, small things that we, sort of sometimes do very mechanically. We pay a bit more cognizance or attention to them as we do it. And if possible, chant those mantras or connect with the Devi or Devata or God that is your favorite, right? Eating, right? Eating, right? We chant this, what is it? We thank the farmers, we then thank the person who brought us food to the market, and then the person who brought it from the market to the dining table after cooking. Three, sources from where food comes to the table. Appreciating that entire line, right? So all of this is all possible, not possible, without some force there, divine force happening. Right? And so, when did we realize all of this, right? Remember, if you look back at the COVID times when we couldn't go outside, etc., and somebody brought some vegetables somewhere, and somewhere you're able to eat with that bare minimum thing and eat it, right? That's when you realize the preciousness of not having something. So when we have something, we forget everything. When we don't have something and suddenly something drops on our plate, right? Even if that's minimalistic food, that way we thank, wow, so grateful for something brought this to my table. So, and then work, studies, right? Before starting work, before even starting our work, what we do, we thank the God for, making the opportunity to do that work. If I was sick, I would not be able to do it. The fact that I'm able to do it means that, God has given me the force and ability and intelligence to do it. And having completed it, right, also thanking that, this was not, I was able to complete it because of my focus, and that focus came because of that energy. So if you see the entire line of things that we do on a day-to-day basis, and of course going to sleep. Right?
Kenapa
When we go to
poso?
sleep, thanking, whether it's your guru or whether it is the divine that, the day went well. I thank you for everything that has happened. Right? May I have a good sleep. And when we get up in the morning, thank that I woke up. I think again we take it for granted. Many people don't get up from bed. Right? I'm able to get up now. I'm able to, start another new day. So if you see the entire thing, it's not that every second we are only thinking about it, but there are so many instances that Dharma teaches us. And then during all the time, we are talking about what we say. We talk so much with people. And that is where remember last week we were talking about what is there in Manusmriti. Now, who wrote Manusmriti? none other than Sage Bhikkhu. Sage Bhikkhu, go back to those ages. And that dharma is still applicable today. I'll just repeat that one. I think those of us, I might have just chanted part of it, but I'll probably put it in the group also for us to refer to it. It says Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat, Na Bruyat, Satyam Apriyam, Priyam Hi, Namritam Bruyat, Esha Dharma Sanatanaha. See that last word. This is a Sanatana Dharma. This is our rules that we have to follow when we speak to others. Right? Being not abusive, not being harsh. It doesn't say being sugar coated, right? Not at all. We should not ever take the opposite angle to all these things. It just says speak the truth. Speak pleasantly. Pleasant again does not mean yummy thing, right? Pleasant means say it in a way that the message goes to the other person, but at the same time not abrasive. Right? So it's a very subtle thing. It's a tactfulness that is required how we do this. But these are all the things that are talked about, right? So if you look at everything, probably 30% of the time you're talking to somebody or the other, either on a call or at work or at home or something. And that applies so much, isn't it? So just being aware of what I say, what I don't say. And so if you look at all of this, right, and then you look at the terminologies that Krishna answered earlier, Adi Bhuta, Adi Deva, all of them are what? Bhutas, the celestial forces, the cosmic forces, the five element forces. All of them are none other than me. And we deal with them every day, right? I deal with milk, I deal with liquids. They're made up of, again, five elements. I deal with water every day. I drink water. I just take for granted and drink that water. Okay, so many things. So basically, if you look at it, right, on a day-to-day basis, I, as a person, I'm doing something. I'm acting. I'm doing something. I am the actor. I am doing the action. I'm also the instrument for an action. I use a set of instruments, either my voice or a set of my sense organs as instruments. And then there's a process that I follow, right? I do ABC in a certain way. And then there's an end result. All of this is only with the enabling of a guiding principle called divine force. Right? Actor, action, instrument, the process, and the result. And which shloka is it that tells us very clearly this particular thing? If you go back and remember the fourth chapter, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavihi, Brahmagno, Brahmanaptam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. That, you see the spoon that you are using. What is in the spoon? What you're eating. And what is the result of what you're eating? And who is eating? Everything is only one Brahma. Right? And that we say we should chant at the time of eating, but it applies pretty much to everything that we do throughout the day. So these are just, the reason I mention all these shlokas is some of us are aware of these. Just become aware of these things. Even if I don't know each and every meaning of everything, just some essence of it to be applied. And one other, daily example, if you can think of it, right, even from a samsaric angle. You take a mother, I'm not saying father doesn't apply here. A mother, if you see, especially a mother who's just given birth to a child and through the early years, right, she might be doing 100 things throughout the day. And yet, in the back of her mind, every third or fourth thought is about the little child. Yes or no? Right? She might be going outside to do something. She's taking a bath. She's always aware, where's my child? She's taking care of, etc. About the food, about whatever subtle signals come from the child, etc., etc. Constantly, there is no way that the mother cannot be aware of what the child is saying, what his child is doing, right? So we are aware. We know how to do this. Nature has given us, being as a parent, to become, constantly aware of someone in our family. Now that same attachment, now that same love, can we just, put forth towards our the larger, divine mother, right? So, divine mother or divine father, however you call it. All of this is considered as upasana. Upasana means what? Just dwelling on multiple ways towards the divine. So in this context, right, you would probably know this one particular episode. If you look at Narada's life, this little episode, it's a very simple one. Narada, of course, always used to say Narayana, Narayana, etc. Wherever he went with this little drum that he had. And once he asked Narayana himself, who's your most favorite devotee? Who's your best devotee possible? And Narayana, without winking his eyes, doesn't use to pick that it would be him. Right? Because Narayana says some particular person elsewhere. So, Sage Narada, not sure why he said that. So he just then, knowing that somewhere there is doubt is coming in the mind of Sage Narada, Narayana tells him, I'll give you a little, work for you to do. I'll give you a pot of oil. A pot, and this pot will be filled to the brim. It has no lid, etc. So I want you to bring it because I'll go to the other side of the hill. You have to bring it to the other side of the hill without spilling even one drop of oil. Right? Just a little errand I want you to do. And Sage Narada, very methodically takes that thing and he's very much aware what he has said, right? I should not spill one drop of oil. So constantly thinking about that, he takes it to the other side after a long walk, and Narayana there, brings the thing and says, listen, see, I've not dropped even one drop of oil, I've done my job. So Narayana asks him, how many times did you chant my name? Narayana said, not even once. Because I was constantly thinking only about the oil. So Narayana says, that little farmer that I was referring to, a poor farmer that is in a village, he goes to work every time in the morning. He takes a bath, goes to the goes to the farm, and before he starts his plowing things, etc., he remembers me. As he's doing the work, he's doing some simple chanting. He may not know shlokas, but he's remembering. At the end of it, right, the fact that he was able to plow that little farm that he has, and he's got the rich dividends from nature. He appreciates the divine force behind all of that, and then he comes home and he shares whatever fruits he reaped from the farm with his children and the wife, etc. So all in all, throughout the day, periodically he remembers me. And he is my favorite devotee. Right? So you understand, right? So it is, any one of us can do it. It is just about that little connection. This thing can happen when I look at, even for example, some of us who do gardening, right? We water the plant. Rather than mechanically watering, just seeing, where that plant was yesterday, a few days back, and the fact that a small leaf has come out, or a small flower is now budding, or the flower has blossomed, right? For example, we have an orchid plant, that Surya had bought a long time back, and for some reason it had, it would almost become deceased. There was no life in it, and yet it was being watered. Guess what? After a few days, like one little small, stem or whatever came, and then after that a couple of leaves have come, now 3-4 leaves have come out of it, etc. Right? And it just feels, like a miracle, right? Right? As from absolutely nothing, something is coming. Right? And you see this always, like people sometimes chop trees. And even if the tree is chopped completely, right, the trunk is gone, yet you'll find some, from the trunk, some branches coming out, right? And you look at all of that, right? It just is somewhere, there is a divine force at play in all of these things. So just being, appreciative of it, thankful for it, right? That's all that I think, is asking us to do here is because we are not going to be able to sit in the puja room from day to night. So it is during our doing our duties, doing the day-to-day work, and in all of them finding avenues for, somewhere connecting with the divine. So all that this particular stanza stresses us. So now we move on to the 8th stanza. So this dwells a bit more into it. He says that therefore constantly builds on the earlier stanzas, right? Contemplating on me. With the mind as discipline. All of this needs a bit of discipline. So it talks about the word called yoga here. So the earlier one didn't have the reference to yoga, but the word yoga. I'm thinking of me and nothing else. You will attain me without any doubt. So contemplation, right? So you can read contemplation in many ways. One of them you can look at is contemplation is just simple connection. Another way you can read that is when we look at it from a yoga perspective is look at it as meditation. But again, I just look at, for example, we just chanted, right? It is always said that when you do puja part, whatever it is, right? Chanting, what you call bhajans, whatever we do, all of them are a means towards that. Right? All of them are a means towards connecting. So we are again, in all of this, right, the key thing to remember, Guruji always says is that, we always show devotion. Right? First thing is to not the puja part as a mechanical exercise. That's the first thing. There's got to be a sense of connectiveness, somewhere a sense of feeling that good that I need to even chant this. Right? And then chanting it with as much full devotion as possible, right? Closing our eyes for a few minutes after having chanted, still being still, and that is the time you actually connect. Right? And all of these are small things that we can do, right? So that's the reason I said japa by itself is very good. Japa followed by stillness. Japa followed by closing your eyes for a few minutes. All of these. So these are again, he says, just doing it again and again. So the word yoga, where it comes in as yoga, as you know, right? We've talked about it so much. Patanjali Yoga Sutra. What does it say? Discipline, discipline, discipline. And doing abhyasa, repeatedly doing the same one thing again and again and again. That same thing applies here. There's no, in all of these, if you see, it's not that suddenly magically some new techniques are coming. It comes down to those bare things that we all are aware of. It is just that we have to become more disciplined and making sure it happens every day. Okay? So now, Ashtanga Yoga, all of you remember, right? Everything from Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, all of that, meditation, Samadhi, etc., right? Those we don't need to go in again. Following as much as possible from those learnings. Right? Now, the question always comes up, right? So when we have to do all of this, right, one thing that needs to be there in our mind is a clarity of thoughts. Right? So day to day, we are getting bombarded with thousands and thousands of thoughts, thousands and thousands of decisions. We are making small decisions to big decisions. In all of this, somewhere there is a sense of right direction that is needed. Yes or no? Right? Otherwise, we can keep doing things very mechanically or very, in a reaction manner rather than responding. Right? So we want to respond with discriminative power, respond with full awareness. And for the full awareness to come, the only secret is meditation. Right? Because it brings in a clarity of thoughts. It does a lot of cleansing within. And when that cleansing happens, all the garbage that we may have stuck inside our head with impressions, etc., slowly start coming out. And with that, when the garbage is removed, suddenly what the cleansing allows you to think better, allows you to do things in a smarter way. All of them. Right? Going back to the earlier one, right? One thing I remember is that starting from children, right? Those days we used to have these comic books called Amar Chitra Katha, right? All of you would remember. Those, were one way for us to make the child connect with different gods. They were all probably some not it was all dramatized to whatever extent possible. But what would happen is that awareness of the child from the early childhood towards gods, goddesses, Puranas, etc. was getting connected, right? And with the picture, so picture and words do magic to us, right? It just connects. So that's the reason it always says, doing abstract, saying something, the same story being said in a set of words versus you reading it and capturing that picture. You look at this picture of Krishna telling Arjuna, that picture remains in our mind. Even today, those of us who've seen the Mahabharata serial over a period of time, multiple times, would remember certain incidents very clearly in our mind. Yeah. Why is it? Because it sticks, isn't it? So like that, right? Again, these are all small little things. Many of us would have done this. They remain, and those are the things that are going to ultimately, at the time when we have to leave the body, because when we leave the body, it's not going to come in alarm, right? It is going to happen all of a sudden, right? Even for a person who's in, a so-called third, fourth stage of cancer, etc., there's no time knowing when it's going to happen. The doctor might just say it could be any month, it could be any time, right? But can you say this particular second something is going to happen? No, right? So I remember one devotee, I think she was a good meditator. So what she had said is, the doctor had told her, and she was in the hospital in her last stages, and she told her daughter, I don't know what's going to happen. All I want you to do is just play Guruji's meditation in the background. I may not be able to meditate, but I just want to listen. Can you just do it for me, please? And she died peacefully in her sleep after whatever days or something like that. So it is like these simple things. I remember when, before my mother passed away, I used to just every day, do some chanting or play, YouTube, just that, because she was very conversant with shlokas, bhajans, etc. Doing so, so we just find, and the only way that can happen is that, it is not that you're in an agonizing pain. When you're thinking of pain, you can't think of God. Like pain means, it's just pain. You get that pain. So, and for the pain not to be there, also there's a blessing needed. Isn't it? You tell me everything ultimately, for you to be in a state of mind where I can think of God, I should not have physical hardship towards the end that I'm not even able to reflect on him or her. Right? For that also you need blessing. And how does that blessing happen? Only if I've been doing good work, I've had good karma over a period of time. So all in all, if we see throughout the life, some application of being connected with the higher force is almost a must. So now we move into the 9th stanza. So if you notice, 9th stanza is a very potent stanza, and the meter changed. If you notice from where we were, till the 8th stanza, the 9th one, and it's done with a purpose. Sometimes there are people. It is said that you go to some whatever lecture or upanyasam, etc., and you go pretty much to sleep, or you're not sleeping physically, but your mind is elsewhere, and suddenly it is like the bell ringing in a temple, right? When they ring the bell, why do they ring the bell? It makes you aware, there's an aarti, go look at the God there, because your mind will be somewhere else, thinking, why is the queue not moving? When's the prasad going to come? Blah, blah, blah. And suddenly the bell rings, oh, yeah, I have to do at least this, do namaste and do this prayer. Similarly, the meter was also done in such a way that, suddenly, there is a awakening that, I have to become aware of what's happening now. if you see this Rudram Chamakam, right? Um, you know, what do you call at the end of Chamakam, right? Um, what is that? Eka Chame, Disdashame, Panchachame, Saptachame, Navachame, Ekadashachame. That thing is always chanted at a higher pitch compared to the others. So it's one, it's a very potent part of the Chamakam. But at the same time, it just it just wakens you. It just takes you to a different level of awareness when you hear that particular chant. So, so this particular stanza, it actually talks about what we can refer to as Parama Purusha, or the supreme divine force. Is this particular stanza, and so it has got a lot of terminologies. I think we have to understand each of these terminologies, not in a lot of detail, but at least to some extent, right? Understand what it means. So there's a word called Kavim, Puranam, and there's a word called, before we go into the other ones, Achintya Rupam. Achintya Rupam. Achintya Rupam means something that cannot be explained in words. Something that cannot be thought, right? Something that cannot be explained. Because divine is that, right? You cannot, it is not something that can be, like, today or whatever I'm able to perceive, I can clearly put it in some essay or writing, this is what it is, right? This is how I see it, this is how I heard it, etc., etc. Not possible. So what Swami Chinmayananda and other sages say is that the only way for us to be able to, go towards a direction of divinity is have pointers. So what the sages have always done, or what Sage Vyasa or Krishna does, is he gives pointers. Pointers are what are indicators. The indicators are what, it is like, let's say there are 2 points A and B, and you say between point A and B there is a distance of 5 centimeters. And then there's a point C. Somebody says, go find point C. You can't say, where's point C, man? But on the other hand, if you say point C is 2 centimeters from A and 4 centimeters from B, suddenly I'm able to find a direction of where that C is, right? So with respect to what is known, I get some visibility of what's the unknown. So Ishvara or Parama Purusha comes under the facet of unknown. Right? So how do I even comprehend this unknown? Is by somewhere linking to what is known. Isn't it? And that's the only way our rational mind is going to think about it, right? If I keep on talking unknown in very abstract terms, people will go and nod off and leave from that particular place. But that's the reason, a lot of stress is being put in our scriptures to give these pointers, give these indicativeness of that. And those indicative pointers are what are described as 8 different terms. So what are those 8 different terms? First word, you see Kavi. Kavi here does not mean, of course, poem or poet or etc., right? Kavi means omniscient. Omniscient means what? Knower of everything. Right? So, expert of experts. Right? So, in this, the first thing that we have to first understand is, where are we? Right? How much do I know? Right? Being honest about ourselves. We know very little. In fact, Swamiji says that, what I know, I can write it in a small sheet of paper. What I don't know, it will be in volumes of books. That's how little I know, right? So I'm not saying we should not be pride in what we know. Just always also need to be humble that what I know is very little. And what is talked about, what is called as an expert? An expert is somebody who knows a lot about little things. So, Swami Chinmayananda always makes jokes. He gives this example. You go to an ENT doctor. ENT doctor is always a specialized person. He'll say, ear, nose, throat. Left ear, you go to one doctor. No, I'm not right ear. No, you go to that other doctor because right ear is a different thing. You have to go to like that. It is so super specialized. But here we are talking about a divine force that is an over everything, not just the worldly matters, everything else. So how do I understand it from a perspective of is ignore everything, the ultimate truth that we are all learning here, knowledge. It's only from Him. So He is the one who illumines that knowledge that even goes into us. The fact that I'm able to talk now, the fact that we are all able to listen to what is being talked about, etc., is all because of His force, right? So ultimately, ultimate knower is one simple way to put what Kavi is. Then Purana. Purana, as you all know, is ancient. Ancient, what is considered, our scriptures are considered something that is ancient but still relevant even today, whether it be the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads or any of them. Correct? It is timeless. So, because it is an eternal truth that existed before even anything was created and will remain the eternal truth after anything might happen. Right? So it is the eternal truth that is referred to as Purana. So if you see Purana, what does it tells us? It is beyond time. See, time is a relative thing that we say. What is time? Time is between space between A and event A to event B. Isn't it? I was born on such date, I died on such date, whatever. We give instances of time, and therefore, but when we talk about Purana, it is beyond time. So, millions and millions of years before, right? We just talked about sage Briku. If we take that example, right? Thousands and thousands of years back, they're still relevant today. And if you were to take Janmas 10,000, 5,000 years from now, it will still be relevant even then. Isn't it? It's because that's the ultimate truth. Certain truths that are written. Then, so we talk about Kavim, Puranam, Achintya Rupam, Anoraniyam. Anoraniyam is that word. It's referred to as subtler than the subtlest. Now, this is a very lot of words here. What does it mean? The best way to take is an example, right? When we talk what is subtle, we have to understand it from the sense of pervasiveness. How much it is pervasive. What is the way to take example of pervasiveness? You open your fridge, you find an ice cube, right? So the ice cube is, let's say, 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Clearly, I can say it pervades only the space of 1 cube centimeters. Isn't it? Clearly say that. Now you take it out, put it into a cup or something, it starts flowing. Let's say you put it into the floor, it spills, that ice cube spills on the floor. In a few minutes, what happens? That ice cube melts and it starts flowing on the floor. And you see that the reach has gone, pretty much throughout that little room into a larger space. So it has pervaded a larger space than what the ice was. Therefore, water is more pervasive. Water is subtler than ice. So far, so good. Then comes that same water, right? Instead of on the floor, you put it into a jar. Now you steam it. So the container is now empty, but that water is vaporized, and now it is into your entire room. So what was a little ice cube of 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, now it has pervaded your entire room of whatever, 10 feet or 20 feet, whatever it is, right? Isn't that more pervasive? So ice is the grossest, right? And then you look at water is more subtler than ice, and then steam, right, is subtler than even water. Then comes a question of what we know already, which is space. Right? We see space everywhere around us. And space is something I can comprehend mentally, right? You're sitting in a room. You're sitting actually in space. That space, the room that is made up of dimension of 10 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet, whatever height you might have, elevation wise, all of that is forming a certain space in which you're sitting. Now, what Anoralium says is that it is even beyond space. So, something again, I can't quite, and the best way to look at it is that, you have a space inside your room, and then you look at the space outside your own house, between your house and your neighbor's house. That's a wider space. And then let's just say some earthquake happened, the entire place got flattened. No house, nothing. That space is even bigger, isn't it? Or you go to an ocean, right, where there is absolutely no buildings, nothing. You see miles and miles of water all around here. Look at the space. That is the vastness of subtlety that is being referred to here in Anoralium. So why do we say, and it is always said this, think of space as the closest to divinity, because it is something that I can comprehend, right? I can just say, I can see the space inside my pot that I have when I have the drinking water, right? I can somewhere, link it. So with respect to that known space that I can comprehend, this is beyond space. So it is everywhere, right? Not just in this particular Milky planet or this planet, all planets, entire universe. So this all pervasiveness aspect of this is what is described in Anoralium. And then Anus, what is this word? Anushasitaram. Anushasitaram, if you see the third or fourth word that comes in the first stanza, is what it is. Anushasitaram just means that he is the ultimate ruler of the whole world. The ruler means what? He sets a sense of ground rules, right? He makes everything happen. So Anushasitaram, you can simply look at, is the ultimate ruler of this. You can call it the director of our life. Right? Even if you don't look at the world for our own life, there is some director that's running. I'm just acting this world, largely speaking. Even though I have a certain choice of doing things, there is a director that has written the script for certain things that are going to happen. And what is that script? Based on all my, impressions, etc. There are certain things I'm bound to do. There's no way, right? I just meet some people based on a script, right? I do certain actions, and the result of those actions based on a script. Who's the script writer? Who's the one who is making the director of this life happen? It's him, right? Anushasita. And then Aditya Varnam. Aditya Varnam is what? Aditya, as you know, is another word for sun. Sun, if you know, is the illuminator. But then, who gives a force to the sun to illumine the whole world is the divine force. So another way to look at the word Aditya Varnam is light is what for all of us is also awareness. Right? Who's the one, the ultimate awarer, the ultimate illuminator, the ultimate knower? So, can you throw some light on this topic? We say, right, sometimes. What does that mean? Shed some knowledge on this particular topic. I'm not aware of it. So that is the word we have to refer to here in Aditya Varnam. It is, what is the meaning of this? What is the essence of it? So that illuminating, not just light as in light, but also the knowledge is Aditya Varnam. And then Tamasam Parasta, this is a very interesting one. This says he illumines even darkness. Isn't that sometimes it's a non-intuitive way to say it, right? So the best way to understand this, right, is you take a torch. Right? You are in a dark room and the power has gone off and you get hands on a torch, right? The torch, helps you to see the light. But the the torch doesn't allow you to see the darkness. So, when I switch on the bulb or the power comes, the darkness is gone, light is there. Take another way to look at it, right? You just, for example, let's say you have gone on a picnic or you've gone on a camp, right, somewhere. You've gone to a camp. And in the camp, typically there's darkness all over the place, but you've taken a hurricane lamp with you and you're sitting inside the camp, and so there's a light inside that hurricane lamp. You look outside, you can see darkness. So if you look at it, something in us is able to perceive the light, something is able to perceive the darkness. Isn't it? So here what he's saying is that something that illumines you to see the darkness is what this power is. You understand? Something that gives light to see the darkness in you is that power. It's a bit of wording that I'm using here. Because light typically means something that is bright. Not at all, right? Even the darkness, I'm able to perceive, isn't it? I can sit in a room, I can say it is dark outside. I can clearly say that. There's absolutely zero light. I can say there's darkness outside. What is it that makes you see that darkness? Right? You can say it's my eyes and all that stuff. Not at all, right? Eyes are just a medium. It's just an instrument. But behind all of that instrument, there is a power that is making me become aware that there is darkness outside. And given that there is darkness outside, somebody says you take a torch and go, etc. Right? We make those decisions. So therefore, we are not talking about normal light, etc. that we normally look at switching on the lamp. This light is one that illumines the light, also what we call as light, and also illumines the darkness. You can read it from another angle, right? This darkness. What is also considered as darkness? Ignorance. I am ignorant of this. Making you aware of the ignorance is also a force, isn't it? So who illumines the dark nature within me? Who illumines the pitfalls that I have in myself, right? And make to do the right corrections, etc. Right? So somebody who can, give light to the ignorance that I have, and then, shed light on how I can, take my life out of that darkness is also Tamasam Parastat. So these were, and this is one, why this being said, we'll come up in the next stanza. You say these, you and I cannot comprehend God in an abstract manner. Of course, we have, Lord Krishna, we just did a lot of daily things during the time of Navaratri, etc. Those are forms. But always we have to go beyond the forms. We have to go beyond the Lord in the temple, right? Beyond the idol in the temple. So here we are not talking anything about Saguna, we are talking about Nirguna. Nirguna means something that is subtle and yet is there. How do I comprehend that? How do I even contemplate on that? So even if not all of these terminologies, even if I just say, he's a ruler of my life, he's the one who's a caretaker of me. There's one more, I think I might have missed one more. Let me just see. There is one that just, supporter.
Sarvasya Data.
Sarvasya Dataram. Dataram means what? Data means supporter. He supports me in every way. Word you can use as support for anything you can think about in life. Right? Supporter of how to come out of hardship, supporter of, keeping the virtues that I have, continue to keep the virtues, not lose them, all of that, that's supporter. So, even if I can even contemplate on some of these 8 terms on a regular basis when I think about God, right? Let's just say that I've finished some work, the fact that, I'm glad that I'm able to keep the skill or talent that I had learned earlier, with which I just finished this work, is a supporter, right? Or, or some what unique knowledge that you have gained, that you're able to apply, look at the illuminator part of the word, the name that we had taught earlier. Right. So somewhere, even if you're not remembering the names, at least remembering these attributes of the unknown through the known that is talked about in this particular ninth verse is very, very powerful. That's where this verse is even here. It's not for just for us to mug up these names. It is about being aware of the fact that God is there in our life in so many attributes. Can I even reflect on one of them or two of them in my day-to-day life? I think with that I will stop.